Mr. Rubin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Chairman Smith.
Mr. Rubin, if you could suspend for 1 second. Mr. Evans, Pastor Evans.
Mr. Rubin's in Portugal. He said to find remotely, but he's there.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, live from Portugal.
Okay. Chairman Smith, Chairman McGovern, honorable members, thank you for allowing me to testify remotely as I was not able to get back on time. It's excellent to see such bipartisan support on this problem. Time is short, so if my detailed testimony is in the record, let me focus on the bottom line. President Aliyev has changed and grown more erratic over the last decade. I'd say his trajectory is almost analogous to what we saw with Sadaam Hussein. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is absolutely right to turn attention to Nagorno-Karabakh. And just while we've had 30 years of diplomacy with regard to this problem, just the energy which the current administration has placed on this issue is very much commendable. Now, that said, strategy matters, and so does timing. We need to talk about sequencing. It's one thing to try to get a broad agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, but that agreement is going to be meaningless if disputes with regard to the borders are pushed down, are kicked down the road. Because if that happens, then Azerbaijan is going to have an excuse in order not to implement an agreement. It also opens the floor, opens the possibility to have some sort of fake 9-dash line type map. And we've already heard President Aliyev saying, well, Yerevan is part of historical Azerbaijan. We need to nip this in the bud. We can't simply assume that this is a rhetorical excess, the way, unfortunately, we did with Saddam Hussein in 1990 before his push into Kuwait. I would also argue that we need to ensure that the laws which are on the books are actually implemented. The waiver of Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act does not enable diplomacy. Moral equivalence does not work. Impunity invites aggression. It's also an affront to Congress. If the State Department finds that Section 907 and what the waiver requires is inconvenient, then it should go to Congress to pass a new amendment, to pass a new law. It can't simply willy-nilly override U.S. law. I would argue that the logic that we can't enforce the U.S. law because it would impede diplomacy is also inaccurate. Azerbaijan is going to do what's in Azerbaijan's interest vis-a-vis Iran. They're not doing it simply because we're allowing Azerbaijan to have some weaponry, which, as Ambassador Brownback has said, has been utilized against Armenia, not only the Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh, but against Armenia proper. We also have on the books the Humanitarian Corridors Act, which dates back to the first Nagorno-Karabakh war and to the Bosnia conflict. The fact is, and we've seen this in the last day, with Azerbaijan using BTRs, armored personnel carriers, to block the Lachin corridor, they are in violation of this. And as far as I'm aware, there's absolutely no waiver with regard to the Humanitarian Corridors Act, and therefore U.S. assistance should stop immediately. There's also the Magnitsky Act, which is another policy arrow in our quiver. Azerbaijan is one of the most corrupt countries on earth. That corruption is clear because despite its tremendous hydrocarbons, its actual per capita income is less than that of Georgia and Armenia, which do not have that energy resource, which basically means that ordinary Azerbaijanis live far more poorly than ordinary Armenians and Georgians do, simply given how so many billions of dollars have flown into the Aliyev accounts, have gone into the Azerbaijani laundromat and caviar diplomacy, and otherwise been siphoned away. Cultural heritage also matters, and I'm sure David Phillips, my good friend, is going to talk about this, but before we impose a piece, we should at the very least have a 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week video monitoring. We shouldn't just verify, we shouldn't just trust. We need to verify as well in real time. We should focus on incitement. There's going to be no lasting peace if Azerbaijan still incites from school-age kids and in the military against Armenians. The State Department should issue, and Congress should require through an act, an annual report on the state of Azerbaijani incitement. Beyond that, there are any number of other ideas which are out there. I would just say in conclusion, this situation is real, it's grave and growing. President Aliyev has become more erratic, but fortunately, we still have many policy arrows in our quiver which we could utilize. Timing matters. The State Department should be applauded for its diplomacy, but not all diplomacy is the same. It needs to be done right. It needs to be done with a greater strategic overview, and we need to understand the forest through the trees and not simply count ourselves as victorious or wise in our diplomacy if tree counting supplants the forest, which, as the ambassador has said, is the preservation of one of the oldest Christian communities in the oldest Christian country. We should not simply allow that for diplomatic convenience to go by the wayside. And with that, I want to thank the panel for my time.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Rubin, for your many excellent recommendations, which we will follow up on, and your insights.